What's up, y'all? Today we're talking about Lu Lateral Raises, a great shoulder developer. They're named after Lu Xiaojun, the Olympic weightlifter, pretty much a living legend at this point, and he uses them as a shoulder developer and as a way to improve his strength in the top position when doing the snatch and the clean and jerk. However, even if you don't have any aspirations of doing any overhead movements at all, I would say this is worth including in your training. And I'll put an image of him doing these on the screen. And as you can see, he has tremendous amounts of upper back development. So this is not just a shoulder movement, people. This is also working a lot of those little muscles around the scapula. As you can see, the range of motion is much, much greater than a traditional lateral raise. For a traditional lateral raise, you're really just going up to around parallel, maybe a little bit higher, somewhere around parallel. With a Lu Lateral Raise, that is just the halfway point of the movement, if that. So you're going from there all the way up above. And so this requires a little bit more mobility as well as a lot more stability from the scapular controlling muscles. I've been doing these for a while. Actually, when I searched Lu Lateral Raises, one of the first results that came up, and I was actually really surprised by this, was my own Instagram post from December 25th, 2019. So I've been doing these for a long time. I do think they have tremendous benefits. I do them sort of off and on, and I'll just read what I wrote before. Exercise Spotlight, Lu Lateral Raises. I don't know if these have a name, but they were popularized by Lu Xiaojun, so I'll name them after him. They involve a tremendous amount of range of motion in the scapula and shoulders and are much more challenging to perform than normal lateral raises. Be prepared to drop the weight by half or more. In particular, they tax the rotator cuff, rhomboids, traps, and front delt. Also the side delts, I don't know why I didn't write that. They also do work a little bit of rear delt as well, mostly to stabilize. They're a great prehab movement. If you cannot do these, you most likely have weak lower traps or some kind of shoulder impingement. And I would say most people should be able to do these. Most people should be able to build up to the point where they can get to that range of motion. If you have terrible posture, you're at your desk all day, you're just caved in, you're not going to be able to do that. You need to be able to open up and extend that upper back. And thus, when you're starting out with these, I would start super, super light. This is one instance where using the pink dumbbells, or maybe even no dumbbells at all, is completely fine. For a lot of people, just using their body weight and going up into this position is completely fine. Just the weight of their arm is going to be enough resistance at first. You need to take the time to get used to that range of motion and get used to opening up the shoulders and the scapula and keeping everything in a good position. So don't just start out using 10-kilo plates because you saw some guy on YouTube or Instagram do that. You should absolutely start very, very light.
In terms of the muscles used, it's mostly going to be delts, traps, rhomboids, all those tiny little muscles around the scapula, the external rotators, the rotator cuff, those are going to be working overtime in order to stabilize everything. The technique is pretty damn simple. Just start with the dumbbells or plates by your side with your hands in a neutral, relaxed position. Start to raise them to the sides. As you go up, you're going to want to gradually externally rotate and finish with your palms facing roughly forward in the top position. It should be a gradual external rotation of the hands. Some people prefer finishing in a more internally rotated position. Other people like a little bit more external rotation. I would say go by feel in that regard. To sum this movement up, put your hands up, put your hands up.
Watford are going to Wembley. All the heartache, all the heartbreak of that final day, it all comes spilling out.
In terms of typical rep ranges, I would say generally between 10 and 20 is a good range, probably on the higher side of that. Especially if you are starting out. Multiple sets of 15 to 20 reps is absolutely going to provide a benefit, even if the weights aren't particularly heavy. You're basically stressing the muscle through metabolic stress and through increased range of motion, not necessarily through increased loading. So again, be prepared to drop that weight down. Take the ego out of it and you will reap the rewards. And if you look at the way Lu himself does these, in the bottom position, he lets the plates or the dumbbells or whatever go down in front and then extends upwards like that. So he's actually letting the dumbbells go down in front and almost like letting his shoulders drift forward slightly in order to get even more range of motion at the scapula. For me personally, I prefer just to start with the dumbbells by my sides because it keeps me stricter. If I go down in front, I just start to cheat too much and it tends to be difficult to actually progressively overload. So often I'll do starting strict with just from the side, and then as I go closer to failure, I will lean forward and get a little bit more oomph. Starting out, stay strict, but if you cheat a little bit when you've been doing the movement for a while, I would say this is definitely safe and can lead to better results. And this is going to work the delts and the upper back in a way that you've probably never felt before. Even if you've done higher rep sets of pressing or sets of traditional lateral raises, this sort of like rotation component, it does hit differently. Now, are these going to be better than traditional lateral raises? Well, in some ways, yeah, you're getting more range of motion. You're entering a part of the range of motion of the shoulder that a lot of people don't ever use. Therefore, I do think it has value as a sort of prehab / injury risk reduction kind of thing. In terms of muscular development, I always saw it as more of a prehab / warm-up movement. And yes, I pushed it hard, but it was never something that replaced overhead pressing, or traditional lateral raises. I would say it's best viewed as more of an addition to your training rather than replacing anything else. That being said, Alec Onkiri had a really good video where he said that he has noticed significant development just from adding these. So certainly it is possible. There is some evidence for them helping with the gains. And it's also worth noting that these can maybe help with some shoulder or upper back trap imbalances. I have some visible imbalances in my shoulders. You can sometimes see them when I'm pressing or when I'm doing rows or some other movement. And I find that Lu lateral raises, they do help much more than traditional lateral raises. When you're doing traditional lateral raises, you don't need to enter the range of motion. That is difficult. You can basically stay in the fairly easy part of the range of motion. Especially if you are going close to failure, you might notice a little bit of shifting around as you hit the sticking point. For most people, the sticking point is going to be somewhere in the top half of the range of motion. So somewhere around here is typically going to be the sticking point. And you might notice there's like a little bit of shifting, or one arm wants to bend a little bit more. Or perhaps you have to make sure to brace your core to keep in the right positions. So I would say this is a good way to check if you might have any shoulder or upper back imbalances. And I would say if you're a bodybuilder or powerlifter or just general population normie, this can be a good way to try to get into Olympic weightlifting in order to get that range of motion. If you have mobility issues or if you have imbalances in the upper back and the shoulders and the arms, this can be a very good way to identify and correct those issues. So definitely worth adding to your program. Again, start light, start easy, feel the range of motion out, especially if you have never really been in those positions before. All right, that's all for this video. Like, subscribe, share, turn on those notifications, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.